Our buddy Jason Fitz from Spain and Fitz is on right now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline as we prepare to take a look at everything that's going on. You got a wild, by the way, Big Ten, some games canceled this weekend. You got some coronavirus problems there. But let's start with the World Series last night, Jay Fitz. And I know, baseball is kind of like this regionalized thing and yada, yada. But, man, you put an analytical decision into it, and everybody comes out of the woodwork. So where do you stand on what Kevin Cash and the Rays did last night?
Look, I'm just not. This is going to make me sound like an old man, and Mike Golick Jr. is going to shiver when he feels this in the universe. I don't think analytics can ever be more important than feel in the moment, and that's just one of my gut moments. Like, I had the same issue to use the other sport that everybody was comparing last night. I had the same issue with the Texans' decision to go for two instead of kicking an extra point. It became this big analytics conversation. Sometimes, it's great when it gets you there, but I just don't understand looking at a chart when some things are in front of you. And I just, to me, as much as analytics are something that so much the community embraces, I still believe that managers are managers because they're supposed to have a gut feel for the moment. And that's what we should want. So I didn't love it. I don't love it. And I am laughing at how many people suddenly had huge baseball analytics opinions that we've never heard from in the past. So really interesting moment for Major League Baseball last night. But look, they'll take the hype. It was a hell of a World Series, and there's a lot to digest that I think is really worth appreciating that, time is going to give us a much better sort of perspective on.
Now, do you think that baseball is suffering as a game because it is so heavily gone down the road of analytics, or do they have other problems? Or is that, to you, the biggest problem for the casual fan?
Too many games, the biggest problem. And, I was talking to a affiliate yesterday that asked me what out of everything that we saw in the shortened season should we keep? And, I know Jess Mendoza has spoken on this a lot, but to me, the part of the reason it really captured everybody this year was because every game mattered more in a regular season. And I know nobody wants to talk about the money side and what that would mean for everybody, but let's be real. No matter how big a fan you are, if you miss a game in a normal season, it's not like it crushes your year. You don't sit there and say, oh, God, I can't believe I missed that game against the Marlins, right? But when there's only 60 games, it really became more of an attention grabber. So I think that's the biggest thing. The other side, the analytics only becomes an issue when it becomes about pace of play. And, when you start talking about a bunch of switches and a bunch of changes. And I understand that, but I also think that we complain about that when we are watching casually. We don't complain about that. It's like any other beef. We don't have it when it's our favorite team doing it. We only have it when it's a casual game we're watching. So, I don't have any problem with the analytics and the way it affects pace of play, frankly, but I think that's what a lot of people would gravitate to.
Yeah, my first reaction is I would be devastated if I didn't have 162 because I am one of those morons that watch probably 159 of 162 Phillies games, and I watch that bullpen explode. Sadly, I put myself through it. But when it comes to the analytics, like the Dodgers just won pitching 2 bullpen games in a 7-game series. The Dodgers heavily used analytics because, well, they took Andrew Friedman from the Rays who used the similar philosophy. So I feel the outrage towards analytics on this one decision, which I defend, to be honest with you. The one decision is being heavily criticized, yet the Dodgers just used it to an insane degree to win.
Well, and but as a general rule, and this is something Sarah and I talk a lot about as a society, as a general rule, we don't like to build up anything that's big. We just like to make a big deal out of anything that's on a negative. So to your point, and look at how often, again, analytics works in every sport for every team. I mean, even coaches that say they don't use it are still getting spreadsheets and they're still getting information about situational football or situational baseball. So everybody's using some level of analytics, and nobody's complaining about a general call. If it's a 4th down conversion in the middle of a football game, nobody cares. But if it's analytics making a decision about a 2-point conversion at the end, everybody cares. If it feels like, if this had been a tied series, that we were going into, I don't think it'd be a big deal. It's just that people are looking for one reason to find why the Dodgers won the series. And instead of saying, wow, they won the series because, frankly, they had some otherworldly pitching and some otherworldly talent on that roster. And hell, the Rays put up a big fight. Like, I'd look at all of it from positive, but rather than do that, it's much easier to yell about one decision that people don't agree with.
Jason Fitz, Spain and Fitz, 7-9 right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, I want to get your thoughts. Darryl Morey is going to be the new president of basketball operations for the Sixers. You got Doc Rivers, Darryl Morey. Does that shake up that organization enough to find them interesting all of a sudden? I know they were the interesting team, and now all of a sudden it was kind of like, well, they kind of look like they're stuck with these bad contracts. You throw Darryl Morey into that mix, and are they somebody that you want to keep your eye on now this offseason?
Well, look, I think it's going to create a really interesting. Is there a more confusing title than president of basketball operations in the NBA? Like, what exactly is Elton Brand going to be doing at this point? And then the other side of it is you have Doc Rivers, a coach that has at times tried to flex his muscle with the Clippers, and now you have Darryl Morey, who's used to having sort of creative control, right? And you combine all of that with Elton Brand. Man, that feels to me like you just put three of the biggest name chefs together, and you're asking them to run one kitchen and one restaurant, and that to me is always concerning. So I think it's going to be absolutely. I mean, there'll be fire all over this thing, and people will pay attention to it. The question is, how's it making them better? I mean, obviously they are making massive change across the organization. I support that. I support change with a plan, not change for the sake of change. So, I think when you start to look at it and say, okay, they've got a coach that I think is a great coach and a president of basketball operations that I think is very qualified to do what he can do. The question I have is, what's it all mean for Elton Brand?
Jay Fitz with us here. Jason Fitz, of course, you can hear Spain and Fitz weeknights 7 to 9 right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, we'll leave with this as it is Eagles-Cowboys week here, and the NFC East is a mess. However, the Eagles are starting to get healthy. The Cowboys have dissension all over the place. Does this division, is it close, or is there a runaway winner eventually in the NFC East?
I think Philly, by the end of it's a runaway winner. And look, as much as you go across the board and you start thinking about each of these teams in the East and how bad they are, I don't believe the Giants are particularly talented. I don't believe the Washington football team is a particularly good roster. I think the Cowboys are, but they're playing like trash, and that's not going to change from a coaching regime that the players seem to have already quit on. Anytime players are covering their own butts and throwing other people under the bus, that to me is a good sign that things are dead there. So now it becomes about Philly. And can Philly sort of get things right? And you mentioned the health. I think that's the biggest part of it. So all they have to do, as crazy as this sounds, is get healthy, and I think they can go on a run. 7-9 can win this division, and if they can get healthy enough to just tread water, then they can get in there. And a healthy Eagles team is going to look substantially different by late December, January than we see right now. So I can at least find a light at the end of the tunnel for the Eagles, and I can't for anybody else. So for that reason alone, I think Philly runs away with the division.
Check out Spain and Fitz tonight at 7 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN. Jason Fitz, our guest, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Thanks, Jay.
Always appreciate you guys. Stay safe.
Yeah, man. And, of course, there's no more baseball. Would have been Game 7 tonight.
I tweeted about 5 minutes after the game, I miss baseball.